Welcome to the EOB podcast, where we talk about the weekend box office and the new openings this week. I'm Beno, and joining me is Sen Duong. Hey, Sen, are you there?
Still here.
You're still here. So it's another weekend, and last weekend, new releases didn't perform or fail to make any impressions.
Yeah, in relative terms, they might have performed up to expectations.
Meaning that the studios didn't have any expectations, you could say.
Yeah. I guess it is one of those things where, well, we'll get into it. They probably weren't expected to be huge and they weren't budgeted accordingly. Some of them probably did up to expectations and some of them probably exceeded slightly and some of them, might have disappointed.
Yeah, we'll get to that. I mean, they took a look at the schedule, right? It's sandwiched between Deadpool and Zoolander, which people might think that could do better than, what it did. But okay, let's jump right in and see how the movies did this past weekend. Coming in number one is Deadpool. Again, it made a 55 million, experienced a 59% drop off from its previous week high of 150 million over 4 days. And just in 2 weeks, it made 235 million.
On a budget of just 58 million, which just goes to show that you can produce these movies cheaply and still get a huge box office.
We've seen some breakout hits, right? I mean, movies that just came out of nowhere, low budget films, and then they made like 200, 300. I mean, movies that went on to have an amazing run. And people don't know why. And the notable thing about Deadpool is it's an R-rated superhero movie. And the talk right now is that will studios take the wrong lessons from this movie and
take
crank
the wrong
out
lessons,
right, or take any lessons from this movie and say, hey,
Yeah.
R-rated movie, we need language, we need violence.
We need nudity, we need gore, we need blood.
Right. So I mean, I guess like we said, this movie will open up the superhero movie field. More flexible, but I guess some people might say, hey, people might take this thing and say, hey, it's the language or it's the wisecracking jokes, self-aware jokes in the movie. So whatever.
Yeah, basically we're afraid that studios might get overboard with this and start making R-rated movies R-rated comic book movies with blood, gore, sex, etc. from now to eternity.
They should really, if there is a story to tell, right?
Yeah. I mean, part of the great thing about Deadpool is that's what makes it different. It's also a movie that works. The storyline works. All this stuff works with the character. That's the main thing. You don't want to be like WB and, just because Christopher Nolan did so well with the Batman movies by making it more realistic, more down to earth, making it darker. They don't go and make every one of their superhero movies gritty, realistic, and dark. That style works for Batman because that's the character. Batman is not a superhero with superpowers. And Batman is very dark. So it works with the character, it works with the story. But Superman is completely different. Superman is bright, colorful, cheery, the complete opposite of Batman. That's what I feel could be a drawback for a Superman movie, is that you make him dark, and that's not really what Superman is.
All right, and you say that one of the reasons for Deadpool's success is that it's different enough from the other superhero movies.
That's what makes it different. But if you start cranking out, 20 R-rated, gory, superhero comic book movies, then you wouldn't what makes it special.
Right. Do you think that it is because that is different enough that maybe it's just a one-off success? Maybe the sequel wouldn't do as well because hey, they already seen what Deadpool has to offer, so to speak.
Like Batman, like Christopher Nolan's Batman, this approach works really well for that character. That's what that character is. That's what Deadpool is. So I don't think it's going to be a one-off because it's one of those things that works for that character. That's how the character was written in the comic books. Now, what's interesting is what people are talking about is that Fox might make Wolverine an R-rated Wolverine movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because they say originally, I'm not a comic book fan, so I don't know all the details, but according to people who are fans of Wolverine, apparently to them, Wolverine is supposed to be, R-rated because he is kind of more edgy, bloody, gory type of superhero.
Oh yeah,
And
he can bust out those four-letter words too, and
yeah,
he has claws for weapons.
yeah. So with the X-Men movies, they kind of, they gave people the PG-13, the cleaned up version. So they're thinking maybe now because Deadpool has been so successful, they might make an R-rated, for the third Wolverine movie, they might make it R-rated.
Which I think might be a mistake.
I don't know. It might be interesting. It might break him out that we've seen Wolverine in like 6 or 7 movies already.
Well, yeah, but I think the extra rating, the one notch up, I
Uh-huh.
probably wouldn't add enough to the character, to the movie story wise. But anyway, but we'll see how
Yeah.
it goes. Interesting experiment.
Right. The thing is, for some movies, the R rating is appropriate, and PG-13 cleaned up version might not be. Like like the Expendables movies. The first two were R rated, and then the third one they thought they wanted to reach a bigger, larger audience, so they went PG-13, and it completely backfired on them. No,
Well, there was this the movie leaked online, didn't it?
video piracy in general. I'm not sure how much it affects the movies nowadays because it really only affects China where it's like rampant video privacy, but in the US it doesn't have that huge of an effect. You never know, but I think the PG-13 rating also has a
Yeah.
huge effect. And
Well, I suspect that the leak I think affect the home video market more than the theatrical release.
right,
Yeah.
exactly. Plus, I mean, it's also the third Expendables movie. No, the Expendables might have been like one of those movies that are good for one movie and not good enough to be three. But yeah, with Deadpool, I'm curious about an R-rated Wolverine movie.
I think it's workable, but just
Yeah,
my personal feeling that it probably wouldn't add much to it. I
yeah.
guess
I mean,
you
yeah.
know.
I guess
I mean,
people have already seen him so many times.
yeah, and it is really his redemption story, right? I mean, you could say he's not a guy with a lot of luck. All
Right,
these things happened to him. His lover got killed,
right,
and he's
right,
trying to find his way. I guess he's trying to leave this world of violence, but things keep on pulling him back in, so to speak. You know.
right.
Okay, I think we drifted to Wolverine.
Yeah,
Well, speaking
right.
about Deadpool, but yeah, you could say Deadpool will, as we said, Deadpool will open the way for other superhero movie having an harder edge.
Yeah.
Having a harder edge. That's good.
And it's bad news for Marvel because we'll probably never see X-Men or any of its characters in the Marvel universe.
Yeah.
In the Avengers because they're doing so well.
Right.
Deadpool has already domestically has already outgrows every X-Men film in just 2 weeks. So that whole X-Men cinematic universe is gonna be is on.
There's an actual rivalry going on now. It's not just dominated by
By Marvel.
Marvel, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
I think they might turn they might turn Wolverine into the eye patch guy.
right. Okay.
In every movie, to
Right, I mean, which is a good thing, really. I mean,
yeah,
because Fox has a different vision for these characters, right? Or how
yeah,
to take it, and Marvel's doing its own thing. It's not Marvel all the
yeah,
time,
yeah,
so
yeah, yeah. It's not
it
it's
allows
not Marvel. It's not Marvel's lighthearted, colorful, PG-13, hosted by Iron Man, Tony Stark's kind of comic book movie all the time. Now you have Fox with their own edgier vision, I guess, and then you have WB's darker vision. I hope they don't stay with those approaches. I hope they go with whatever works for the character and the story.
well, they have a deep enough money pool to kind of
Hmm.
take different approaches. Like they
Right.
can basically fail a couple of times, really.
Yeah. Right.
So we'll see how it goes. Batman versus Superman is coming up, so we'll see how it performs. And from the reactions I get, people are kind of hyped up for this movie.
For Batman versus
Yeah.
Superman.
Yep.
Well, according to Drew McQueenie from Hitfix, formerly of Any Cool News, according to him, WB is worried after its test screenings. According to him, audiences responded to Batman, and surprisingly, they also responded to Lex Luger.
Luther.
I think it's Luger, right?
No, it's Luther.
It's
Lex
Luthor.
Luthor.
Okay, I'm getting the wrestler. Uh, mixed up here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's why
Lex Luthor.
you should not watch movie and watch WWE. Those two don't
Yeah,
mix.
I don't think it's WWE. It's WCW. I think like
Oh,
Lex
okay,
Luthor.
okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't follow wrestling anymore or
Right,
professional wrestling. Okay, yeah.
right. Hey man, that's real.
I know. They're pros after all, right? Yeah.
Okay, anyway, yeah, surprising they responded to Lex Luthor and, nothing about Superman. And apparently WB is kind of worried. And it's not surprising, though, because that darker, edgier look does work better for Batman than Superman. I guess the word of mouth from the test screening hasn't been that great.
Well, you know the movies, right? Even with the Superman movies,
Uh-huh.
they weren't that positive. People thought it was just okay.
The reaction was okay. I mean, it did make 300 million in the US. It's as good as the first Iron Man. It's better than the first couple Captain Americas and Thor, and yeah. So it's better than those. Yeah, the reviews were lukewarm. Yeah, not as positive as the other Marvel movies.
Right. It's
Um,
not like not like Nolan's Batman, for example. They're hyped
yeah,
up. They're kind of like, oh, it's
yeah,
an okay Superman movie, kind of like that.
right, right. Yeah, look great, but it has issues with the story.
Right.
And I think the reaction, I guess the test screenings, all in a similar vein too.
They are going toward the Justice League with the Batman versus Superman movies, right? They're going with
Yeah,
their own Wonder Woman
what,
movie.
that's why WB is worried. If this one that's supposed to launch all these other movies doesn't do well and doesn't get a good reaction, then hey, all the other movies might be jeopardized.
Yeah, I think it'll do all right. I mean, it's just like the people I saw, Ben Affleck as Batman. He's all right. I think he makes a
Yeah,
good Batman.
yeah, that's what
Y-
the test audiences responded to too.
right, but Henry Cavill is kind of like a known quality. We know what he is, right? His other movies didn't
Uh-huh.
really register because,
Yeah,
right? He's like you say, he lacks wattage.
yeah. Well, he's kind of he's vanilla. He doesn't have any of Christopher Reeve's charm.
Right, exactly. So as people probably found out that like the people doesn't react to him because hey, he doesn't have that it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. That's the weird thing. When you see Christopher Reeves, he has that it factor. When you have it, you kind of take it for granted. You feel like, oh, they could have stick any vanilla actor in there and it'll work. But I guess with the previous two iterations of Superman, we know that hey, that it's actually kind of hard to find someone who's kind of vanilla but also kind of charming at the same time.
We'll have to see, but I think Batman versus Superman will do okay, probably even great, because the feeling out there is that people are excited about the movie, test screening aside.
I'm not sure the reactions to the trailer have been mixed. The reactions to the trailer hasn't been as great as the reaction for like Captain America 3 Civil War. It has actually kind of mixed because like when they released, I think the second trailer, people were like, "Wait a minute, you just ruined it for us." It was supposed to be Batman versus Superman, and we found out that it was really not going to be Batman versus Superman. It's really Batman and Superman versus a super powerful thing monster created by Lex Luthor.
Well, but
The
that's
Abomination.
yeah, but
Is that what?
that's really the story. It was never. I mean, they kind of don't get along in the beginning, right? It's one of those movies.
Yeah, that's the thing. But I guess what people felt like was they ruined the whole thing for them because they were expecting Batman versus Superman, and now they know that hey, they're gonna patch things up and fight a bigger monster.
But I think people who follow the comics kind of
Uh,
knew where that was going, though.
they might have, but still, the reaction to the trailer to that was like, hey, you could at least give us some surprise instead of ruining it all for us.
Okay,
And and I
let me
think
put
yeah.
let me put it this way. There is going to be some exchange of blows between Batman and Superman in the movie. They're gonna patch it up to fight a bigger threat. That's how the story goes. And the title is just Batman versus Superman, right? But it's not really that. It's just like, oh, they have a grudge, then they come to respect each other. They team
Exactly.
up and form
Yeah,
the Justice
exactly.
League.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's one of the main problems, as opposed to like Captain America: Civil War, where you know that there are definitely two sides. They're gonna fight, and it's gonna be a battle. Whereas Superman, Batman versus Superman is now we know going in that we won't get that matchup. They're just gonna tag team together later. So it kind of takes away some of that anticipation. Like, hey, woo, we're gonna get a matchup between day versus night, darkness versus.
Oh,
That
come on,
show is
Sen.
going
If
on.
you follow wrestling, you should know this would have happened anyway, right?
No, in wrestling, they actually go through. You still get Hulk Hogan versus Ultimate Warrior, and Ultimate Warrior, won, and
Right. No, well,
you
they have
don't
this
you don't
they have
you don't you
this
don't you don't go in and go, oh, what, in the middle of the match, some other guy comes in and they team up and fight some other guy.
No, that's what happened too. Some guy just run out toward the ring and start beating up one of the guys and they
Yeah, but if you didn't tell us, but if you didn't win it for us before the match, we
Okay.
would have been happy with it.
Okay.
Right? People might have been happy with it if it wasn't won in the trailer.
Okay. We'll
But
leave it at
anyway,
that. Yes,
yeah,
we'll leave it at that.
we have 9 other movies to go through.
Yes, okay. Which means Kung Fu Panda 3, yes, came in number 2. It made 12.5 million over the weekend. In its fourth week, it made 117 million. Has a pretty good hold.
Yeah, it's actually holding on after its like initial second weekend drop. It still won't make as much as the second movie, but hey, it might get close.
Which is pretty good. And I guess the gambit to open it for the Chinese market didn't really pay off.
Not too bad though, not too bad, because in China it's already taken in about 140 million, which is better than the second one. The second one made 95 million.
Oh, so it's actually picked up steam in China.
Yeah, you're right. It picked up steam in China, so by the end of its run in China, it might make 50 million more than the second one.
Yeah, because last we checked, Kung Fu Panda 3 was kind of edged out by the Chinese New Year's movies.
Yeah, right,
And it
right.
seems like no, it's kind of back to normal.
Yeah.
All right. How about we move on to number 3, Risen. It's one of the new releases last weekend. Stars finds as one of the Roman soldiers who is tasked with finding the body of Jesus Christ, who kind of escaped his tomb.
Right.
Yeah, it made 11.8 million over the weekend. What did we have it at? I think I had
Around
it
10.
between 10 to 15. And I think you said about, let me do a quick look. Yes, you said about 8.
10 to 15 is about why it came in right in the middle of your prediction. And we have a budget for it, 20 million. I think we were guessing at the budget last week.
I think they spend the money on a good cinematographer. I thought it costs a bit more, but hey.
Yeah. This opening is actually pretty good for a 20 million budgeted film.
And I guess this movie is kind of different from the other movies, other Christian theme movies. Well, not that different, but
they have a non-believer. Well, I guess the other films have non-believers too.
Yes, not that different. But I guess this one is more edgy than the other Christian theme movies.
Yeah, and this one they actually have a legitimate star
and director.
Kevin Reynolds of Robin Hood fame.
He's used to work with a bigger budget. This is kind of like an indie for him.
Right. And Joseph Fiennes, Oscar caliber actors.
Tom Felton, the Harry Potter movies, right?
Right. It's gonna keep the whole faith-based genre trucking along.
And April's coming along, with the Passover or whatever holidays in April, religious holidays. So I think it's gonna stay in theater for a little bit, and I think they promote this movie heavily as of other Christian theme movies at the churches. So there you go. Yeah.
And the reviews aren't too bad. 58% on Rotten Tomatoes. I think that's way better than the previous handful.
Well, like genre movies, 58% is pretty good. Like kind of like horror movies, right?
Yeah.
58%. Right. Wow.
Yeah, we're comparing faith-based movies to horror films.
I'll call it genre movies.
Yeah. So generally a genre that's not well regarded, but hey, so 58% is pretty good.
A genre that didn't have a good track record. Let's say the stories are kind of like too preachy, I guess. That doesn't appeal outside of the core audience. Let's put it that way.
All right, let's move on to number 4. Speaking of horror movies and the horror genre, The Witch. It made 8.7 million over the weekend, which is pretty good because the distributor, A24, only spent $1 million getting the rights to distribute it in the US. So they've already made money.
Yeah, it's pretty close to what we had it. I said about between 5 to 10. You said about 10.
Although I'm closer to this than Risen.
All right. The Witch opened okay. I mean, I think it was tracking between 5 to 6 million or something like that. It performed a bit better than what people projected to do. A24, it's kind of like a boutique distributor. They don't really have a genre, but they took what's interesting and they kind of release it.
Mhm.
They buy what's interesting. Kind of like The Witch. I guess they saw something there at Sundance and they bought it.
It's very well reviewed, 88% on the tomato meter. And their other film, The Womb, is also very well reviewed, and the actress got nominated. Brie Larson got nominated for Best Actress. So yeah, like you said, it's not a specific genre that they're going after. They're just going after good movies.
Oh, right. I guess that's all for The Witch. Perform, I guess, where people had it.
A little bit better than what people had it, I guess.
Right, and maybe it would have the life like The Boy, where it can just keep on staying in theaters since it's so well reviewed. And really, The Witch is the final horror movie of the winter.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yes, because we're coming out in spring.
Yeah. Speaking of The Boy, it's made 33.4 million so far, which is pretty good because it only cost 10 million to make.
Right, and of course you'll find a second life on home video.
Yeah, right. All right, let's move on to number 5, How to Be Single. 8.2 million, kind of a steep drop off, 54%. It's made 32 million so far after 2 weeks at a budget of 38 million. So it looks like you'll probably have to make back his money on video.
What is the review like for How to Be Single?
I think it was okay. 47%, kind of mixed.
Oh yeah, and a B cinema score. So I think it did all right.
Yeah, it's doing okay. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, and remember when we say that, can Dakota Johnson break out of her 50 Shades of Grey movie? It looks like she's doing okay, but
Yeah,
didn't
doing
have,
okay. Not great.
yeah, not she didn't have this breakout thing yet.
Right. I guess it's like Zac Efron after the High School Musical movies. Like they open in the high teens. So we'll see if she can continue this streak, continue to open her movies in the high teens.
Which probably could. I mean, because if the movie costs around that much, between 25 to 30 to 40 million,
Mm.
I think she probably could be a reliable opener, as long as, remember this movie has a Rebel Wilson, right?
Yeah, right.
And Leslie Mann.
So we'll see.
Yeah. Okay, then let's move on to number 6, the another new release last weekend called Race. It pulled in 7.2 million over the weekend. It didn't do as well as we projected to do.
Yeah. I was thinking it could do 15.
Yeah, and I went with 10 to 15.
All right.
And it underperformed both of our projections. Like we said in the last podcast, that the movies that tend to do well with the African American crowds are comedies, action thrillers, even romantic thrillers.
Stuff that are not very serious.
Right. And the sports drama is kind of like, it's kind of iffy. Has up and down track record, I guess, inconsistent.
Right. Because 42 did amazing business, grossed over 100 million, and then you have Race.
Well, like I said, 42 had Harrison Ford, right? It has other characters, more charismatic actors.
Yeah.
Race, I feel doesn't really have the people.
Right.
Moving on to number 7 is Zoolander 2. It pulled in 5.5 million, experienced a 60% drop in the second weekend, and it made about 23.7 million so far.
It's a tumble.
Yeah, I mean, people thought that after 15 years or so, they returned to a movie that's probably a one-off premise,
Yeah,
and
right. And the reviews were horrible.
Uh-huh.
23% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Right, and we can see that, hey, the fans of the original movies probably moved on already.
Right. Let's move on to number 8. Star Wars, The Force Awakens, 3.8 million. It's continuing to hold on, 38% drop off. The total is now 922 million in the US. Let me see, worldwide it's at 2.04 billion. It'll probably stay around there. Number 9, The Revenant, 3.8 million, about the same as Star Wars. Domestically has grossed 165 million at a budget of 135 million. It looks like it's finally slowing down after all those weeks in the top 10. Worldwide, it has grossed 381 million. And, the Oscars is coming up this weekend, right?
I'm not sure, probably.
Yeah, so we'll see if one of these films get a Oscar bump.
Right. So, I mean, the only thing left for The Revenant is to see if it could win any awards. Probably the big one. Okay, so closing the top 10 is Hail Caesar. It pulled in 2.6 million over the weekend, experienced another high drop off, about 58%. And in 3 weeks, it pulled in 26.1 million.
Yeah, speaking of legs, this one has no legs.
This one has no legs. People just, well, legs, people running away from it.
Oh yeah, true.
You know, remember that weekend that President weekend, people were catching up on the movies. This one experienced I guess the largest drop off in the top 10, despite having all these stars.
Right. I mean, it's decently well reviewed. It's just one of those insider movies that film fans, film fanatics, and people in the industry have an interest in, but it doesn't look like it's getting out of that demo.
No, no. I mean, seriously, an actor got kidnapped by communists. I mean, what? You know? And a movie about movie making? No, no. I mean, look, they want action, right? They want the special effects, but hey, Hell Caesar's not that.
Yeah, it's pretty well reviewed, and it seems like a fine movie. It's just
no. This movie appeal to people who are in the industry, including movie critics.
People
outside of that,
who understands all the inside jokes.
Right, and people who appreciate like what goes into a scene or how a scene comes together, right?
Right.
The general audience don't care.
Right. All right. We also have to mention that outside of the top 10, one of the debuts is in very limited release in only 35 theaters is Stephen Chow's The Mermaid. It made $1 million over the weekend in only 35 theaters with a per screen average of 29,000, by far the highest on the chart. The film has already grossed 420 million in China, which is an all-time record high, and in only 2 weeks of release. It's going to be crazy to see how high this goes. It's like the Star Wars of China right now.
Right. But I hear it probably won't make any blip. You know, sure, it pulled in 1 million, but that's like chump change compared to others. The interesting thing about The Mermaid is that it's released by Sony. And remember in the previous podcast, I said that, hey, you know, if China received more publicity, could it do better? Sony, they're indie arm, Sony Picture Classics. This one's probably, released by that studio. Probably had a little bit more advertising budget.
No, they didn't advertise this movie at all. That's one of the complaints from, I think, IndieWire and some other people in the media. They're like, hey, this movie is breaking records in China. A major studio has the rights to it, and they didn't market the film at all. And despite that, it did $1 million in only 35 theaters with a per screen average of 29,000, which is, by far the highest on the charts.
Oh, and I mean, it could be Stephen Chow fans checking it out, and they're counting on those people to tell their friends about it.
No, it might be, it might be one of these things where they what's the previous one? The previous record holder,
Monster Hunt.
Yeah, they might think that it's like Monster Hunt, one of these movies that appeals to the Chinese audience but have no appeal outside of that. But The Mermaid definitely show that it has a wider audience than that, with 29,000 per screen average. That's really good. It continues this trend of U.S. distributors of Chinese films releasing their films within weeks of their original release dates in China. These films are actually grossing in the millions rather than like tens of thousands. Even The Monkey King 2 did over 500,000, whereas the first one, I think, only ended up doing like a sixth of that or less.
Yeah, you just wonder if they're just kind of like throwing these movies out on theaters just because. And I think the real moneymaker is on home video or VOD.
That's part of it. The other part is they just don't have much confidence in it, and then these distributors can't get enough distribution, and they don't have the budget to get that kind of distribution. They don't have the marketing budget, and they probably couldn't convince mainstream theaters to carry it. But I think The Mermaid shows with 20,000 per screen average. That's like jam-packed theaters. So it shows that, hey, maybe this thing has more appeal than they expected. because it's doing so well in just 35 theaters, they might expand the film to more screens in the coming weeks.
Yeah, which they will, I think. Like say 29K per screen is, very good.
Yeah, it's very good. And it's not like when you see these kind of per screen averages in the 29,000, they tend to be released in a couple screens. So everyone who wants to see it goes to those couple screens. But this is 35 theaters at 29,000. That's really good. And according to Box Office Mojo, this 1 million debut is the
Mhm.
highest ever for a Chinese language film, excluding Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Okay, okay.
Yeah,
I was about to point that out, but okay.
yeah. I think the previous high was Ip Man 3.
Well, like I said, Crouching Tiger had an advertising push behind it. This one didn't.
Yeah, this one had no advertising.
Right, you can see the disparity between number one and number two.
Yeah.
Huge drop off.
Yeah, well, Crouching Tiger had the reviews, the film festivals that built it up, and then they slowly expanded it. It got nominated, and they won a bunch of awards. It slowly went wide.
Mhm.
Whereas the Mermaid was just kind of, they're like, hey, just dump this in all these markets that have lots of Asians.
Well, when we say that comedy sometimes had this cultural barrier, there's that with the Mermaid too, right?
Yeah, they're
Some
afraid that
yeah,
the Stephen Chow humor might not translate.
right.
But at 29,000, that's eye-opening. They might have a better thing than they expected. And the other thing with Monster Hunt doing so poorly was Monster Hunt, they released the film like half a year after it debuted in China. That interest level is not there anymore. That excitement level is not there anymore. And people who probably wanted to see Monster Hunt and what all the talk was about probably already own the Blu-ray. That's one of the problems with Monster Hunt. But The Mermaid, they released it just a couple of weeks after its debut in China, and it's doing really well in limited screens.
All right, then we'll see what Sony will do. Right, okay, so we're done with the top tens and whatever that opened.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the openings. We
Mhm.
have three again. Movie called Eddie the Eagle, Gods of Egypt, and Triple Nine. How about we start off with Gods of Egypt?
This looks like the 300 sequel that people wanted Gerard Butler to make, but it's not called 300.
Well, this one has like CGI monsters, so it's kind of different. This movie stars Gerard Butler, Jeffrey Rush, Nicole Ja, Coster Waldau. I guess about two gods who are battling it out, and I guess Egypt is in the crosshairs.
It's one of these CGI slugfests, I guess.
It's kind of like the Clash of the Titan movies.
Right, right. It also has in its cast Rufus Sewell, and I was looking at who directed this, and it's Alex Proyas, the guy who directed Dark City, which also stars Rufus Sewell. Alex Proyas I guess his films have a very unique look. He's kind of one of these visionary directors. I was curious to see that he directed this.
And I guess the lead actor here is Brendan Thwaites.
The lead actor?
Well, I mean, even though Gerard Butler plays the bad guy,
Wait, Gerard Butler plays a bad guy?
he plays the bad guy.
Interesting. No reviews yet on Rotten Tomatoes.
I'm not surprised. This
Yeah.
movie doesn't look very good to me.
It does look kind of, because of Alex Proyas, it does look kind of interesting to me on a visual level.
Maybe it's one of those kind of loud movies, and the color scheme is kind of,
Yeah, the color scheme does look a lot like Clash of the Titans.
well, everything's kind of gold, right?
Yeah,
I
right.
guess to fit the theme of Egypt,
Yeah.
but it's kind of off to me. And Brendan Thwaites, as the lead guy,
Well, they're not promoting him as a lead guy, though. Gerard Butler's face is all over the place. And
right? Because
they're
he's the biggest name.
yeah, and he's making speeches.
Yes.
Like he's definitely channeling his character from 300.
True. I mean, you look at the poster, it's Butler on the poster, and then this other guy with the eye patch. I think he's I can't pronounce his name. Nicola?
I want to help you there, but I would mess it up even more.
Okay, let's call him Nicky. All right. So it's Gerard Butler and Nicky on the poster, and Dwight, it's kind of nowhere to be found on the. Well, he's that little thing on the orb hugging some woman. Very tiny characters. So like those two are the biggest actors there. CGI monsters, directed by Alex Projas, right? Has the cred, Dark City, and The Crow. But I don't know. I think it seems like a low rent version of Clash of the Titans to me.
which is already kind of low end. Holy moly! Wikipedia, the budget is 140 million. Ooh.
They're going to lose money on this.
With that kind of budget, it needs to open to at least 50 million.
Do you think it can do 50 million?
Oh, I don't know.
Okay, so as a comparison, right, I compared it to Clash of the Titans. The first movie, Clash of the Titans, opened to 61 million, made 163 million domestic. The sequel, Wrath of the Titans, made half that. It opened to 33 million, and it closed at 83 million.
But this is Gerard Butler in the kind of movie that people like to see him in.
Yeah, he also has another movie coming out next week.
The London one, right?
Yes, London Has Fallen. So they might be saving money to see that instead.
I'm curious to see how this will do, though, because this is the kind of character that people are more familiar with Gerard Butler. I didn't realize he's the bad guy in this. So we'll just have to see.
Yeah, so it's kind of playing against type here.
Yeah.
Testing out his villainy muscles.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't see 50 million, though.
I don't. I'm seeing somewhere between 20 and 25. I don't see this week recovering that much. Yeah, because of the movies.
Okay, let me see what HSX has it at. Wow, they have it opening at 12 million.
Wow. Well, see, the thing with the Titans movies, right, is the cool monsters it has on the special effects, right? This one, the monsters are not that cool looking.
Oh, okay, I see. They have the opening number at 15 million. Wow, at that way, it's going to be one of the biggest duds of the year at that figure. I shouldn't look at these. Clouds my original judgment.
Oh, you thought it was higher?
Yeah, I can see, a movie like this doing like 40 to 45 million. But at the same time, I can also see it completely tanking. All right, since HSX is putting it at 15 and you're putting it at 20 to 25, and I'm speaking more favorably of the film, I'll go 30 to 35. It's one of those movies I wouldn't be surprised if it makes 40 to 45, but I'm also not surprised if it is a complete dud.
I looked at the trailer and it's just lacking something, it's lacking that cool, that excitement.
But it's Gerard Butler making speeches in front of a green screen.
Okay, all right. You have me there. Okay, all right. So I guess you're going.
I'm going high. I'm going with what people like to see him in.
You're betting on Gerard Butler, your team Butler.
Yeah, this is a 300 movie that people wanted to see. The 300 sequel that people wanted to see.
Okay, we'll see what happens. Still, even with your optimistic numbers, it still probably wouldn't save this movie from bombing.
Yeah. My goodness, 140 million. I mean, I could see the logic behind it. I guess, at these pessimistic expectations, it's going to bomb.
It's not going to do well, yeah. 999, it's the thriller by Open Rule Films, directed by John Hillcoat, stars Casey Affleck, Elijah Ford, I'm not going to pronounce his first name, Gal Gadot, Woody Harrelson, Anthony Mackie, Teresa Palmer, and Kate Winslet.
Great cast.
Yeah, great cast. So the story is about a group of gangs and corrupt cops with ties to the Russian mafia trying to pull off a big heist. This movie was supposed to star Shia LaBeouf, but he backed out, and now it ended up with Casey Affleck in the role.
Reviews are half decent though, 62%. Not great, but not too bad.
It's one of these R-rated dark thriller with lots of gunfights, double crosses.
Kind of under the radar. The trailer looks pretty exciting, but the thing is, no one in the cast is a huge draw at the box office. So I'm thinking 5 to 6 million since it's so under the radar.
Wow, you had it lower than mine.
No, what's your figure?
Okay. I had it at around 10 to 15 maybe, but mine's probably high, I think. Well, 999, the title refers to the police code when an officer is shot. And I guess one of the plot points is that they're trying to kill Casey Affleck's character, who's a cop. While the police responds to his condition, right, the criminals can go pull off a heist at a bank.
Ah, okay.
So that's what the title refers to, 999.
Okay.
I don't know. The cast is okay.
10 to 15?
Yeah, 10 to 15. I think it might be an okay thriller, but I figured that it might be a bit high on my part. But hey.
Yeah, because none of those guys open movies. I mean, Aaron Paul kind of open. Need for Speed movie kind of open.
You know, Anthony Mackie, as we know, is Falcon
Yeah.
in the Captain America movies. And Gal Gadot, hey, Wonder Woman. We have a lot of superheroes here.
Right.
Okay. Eddie the Eagle. One of those movies that is based on a true story about a British aspiring ski jumper, and it stars Hugh Jackman.
The reviews on Rotten Tomatoes, only 11 reviews so far, is 64%, which is not bad for this kind of movie. This movie has the kind of what's that? The robot movie that Hugh
Real
Jackman.
Steel.
Real Steel has that same feel to me, except without robots.
Yes, except a robot, you got a guy.
Yeah, so it's not going to do nearly as well as that. I'm thinking like 5 million too.
Let me go a bit high on that. Let me do 10 because hey, this Hugh Jackman, he still has his ripped bod from his superhero movies.
Yeah, but there's no superheroes. There's no robots.
No robots, but you can see Hugh Jackman on the sideline cheering the guy on, and say "Go!" while lifting his arms, you know, and showing his bicep.
All right, okay, sure.
So, but this is a distinctly British movies, and those kind of movies don't really do well here.
Yeah, I think
know.
10 million is too high.
It is too high, but you bet on Gerard Butler. I'm betting on Hugh Jackman.
Okay, all right, sure.
All right. To be fair, you get one, I get one.
All right, okay, all right.
We can cheer some movies on.
Right.
Okay, so another week and that won't have any big movies really. I mean,
it depends on whether or not I'm right with Gods of Egypt.
Oh, you could be right. You could be the only guy who's right this coming weekend.
I doubt it. It's one of those movies that, like I said before,
right.
could do huge or it could completely bomb.
You're kind of like the guys in The Big Short. You saw what's coming and nobody saw. And you could.
Well, it depends. It depends. It depends.
Right. It depends. You know.
It depends on this Friday or Saturday.
Right.
I could be the guy that everyone laughs at. 35 million.
Right. But hey, if you're right,
if I'm right, I get more Gerard Butler stuff.
Right. Gerard Butler solidified himself as, I guess, kind of like Leonardo DiCaprio. They would pay to watch him in anything.
Not exactly.
Okay. Right. Kind of, you know, you got to go with the narrative here, you know.
All right. Here, I'll go with your narrative. They would pay Gerard Butler in anything as long as he's making a speech in front of a green screen.
All right. So he still has that halo effect from 300.
Yeah, we'll see.
We'll see this weekend. Next week, we'll come back and we'll talk London Has Fallen, Zootopia, and finally, Knights of Cups.
Yeah, more interesting weekend. So we'll see you next week.
Okay, we'll come back. We'll talk those new openings.